When everything turns against you, watch God turn it for your good. There comes a time in every believer's life when everything seems to turn against them. The situations you face appear to contradict the promises God gave you. The people you trusted might betray you, opportunities might close, and the path that once looked smooth suddenly feels like a climb through darkness. But beloved, the Word of God declares in Genesis 50:20, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." These were the words of Joseph to his brothers, the same brothers who sold him into slavery, the same people who caused years of pain and rejection in his young life. Yet Joseph could look back and say, "It was all God's plan." That is the powerful truth that anchors us this morning. No matter what has turned against you, God is working behind the scenes to flip it for your good. You may be waking up today feeling surrounded by opposition, loss, confusion, or betrayal. But hear the word of the Lord. What you perceive as a setback is not the end of your story. It is the setup for your testimony. Proverbs 19:21 says, "Many are the plans in a man's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails." The enemy has plans, people may have plans, but only God's plan stands. The adversary may think he's winning, but God always writes the final chapter. Joseph was thrown into a pit, later sold into slavery, wrongly accused in Potiphar's house, and forgotten in prison. Everything seemed against him. There was nothing in his life that looked like God's promise of elevation. Yet every painful step was part of divine orchestration. The pit could not bury his destiny. The prison could not contain his potential. When the time was right, the same God who allowed the delays, the betrayals, and the disappointments used them as stepping stones to the palace. Maybe like Joseph, you've been misunderstood, overlooked, or unjustly treated. Perhaps you've been waiting for years for God to fulfill a promise, and everything seems opposite of what you prayed for. Hold on. Romans 8:28 declares, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who are called according to His purpose." Did you notice that? All things. Not some, not most, but all. That means the pain, the loss, the rejection, and even the delay are instruments in the hands of a loving God, shaping you for something greater than you imagined. When everything turns against you, it's easy to believe you've been forgotten. But remember the story of Job. Job lost everything: his children, wealth, health, and peace. Yet in Job 42:10, we read, "The Lord restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before." The enemy struck him, but God flipped it. Job's latter days were more blessed than his beginnings. What does that tell us? That even in moments of deep suffering, God's hand is at work preparing restoration far beyond what was lost. Romans 8:31 asks us a powerful question. If God be for us, who can be against us? The truth is, many things can come against you. People, circumstances, even your own fears. But none of them can prevail when God is for you. God's favor outweighs every opposition. Isaiah 54:17 assures us, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." It doesn't say weapons won't form. It says they will not prosper. People may form agendas to push you down. Situations may seem crafted to destroy your joy, but if God is for you, it all collapses in His timing. Sometimes God allows the weight of opposition to press you, not to crush you, but to prepare you. Romans 5:3-4 says, "We also glory in tribulations, knowing that tribulation produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope." The challenges you face are molding your spirit, strengthening your faith, and deepening your roots in the Lord. Without pressure, there's no growth. Without opposition, you'd never see God's intervention. Think of Daniel. Laws were turned against him. Evil men plotted to destroy him because of his devotion to God. The decree was sealed. The lion's den was opened. Everything was against Daniel. But that night, when the world waited for his downfall, God sent an angel to shut the lions' mouths. The next morning, the same king who ordered his death declared Daniel's God as the living God. That is what happens when heaven flips the plans of hell. The same happened with Esther. A wicked man named Haman plotted to destroy her people. He even built a gallows to hang Mordecai, the man of God. But at the point of execution, the story shifted. Esther 9:1 says, "On the day the enemies of the Jews had hoped to overpower them, the tables were turned. Haman was hanged on the same gallows he built for Mordecai." God flipped the story entirely. So what about you? God is still the same today. The same hand that lifted Joseph, defended Daniel, delivered Esther, and restored Job is moving in your story. You may not see the full picture yet, but God never stops working even when you can't trace him. As Psalm 37:23-24 says, "The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and though he falls, he shall not be utterly cast down, for the Lord upholds him with his hand." Do not mistake waiting for abandonment. God does some of his best work in silence and obscurity. The shaping of destiny often happens when you feel forgotten. Look at David, anointed to be king, yet sent back to tend sheep. But while tending sheep, God trained his hands for battle and taught his heart worship. The same boy ignored in the fields became the giant slayer and eventually the king. Every season of rejection became part of redirection. Whatever you are facing this morning, financial strain, relationship turmoil, spiritual dryness, health concerns, remember this truth: God is not done. In fact, he is orchestrating a reversal. Isaiah 61:3 says, "He gives beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness." For every tear, there is a crown of joy waiting. For every pain, there is purpose. For every delay, there is divine preparation. Sometimes God allows opposition to reveal who he is in your life. How would you know him as a healer if you never faced sickness? How would you know him as a provider if you never had lack? How would you see him as a deliverer if there had been no bondage? The trial is a vehicle through which the glory of God is revealed. John 11 shows us this clearly. Lazarus had been dead 4 days when Jesus arrived. Everyone had given up hope. But Jesus said, "This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God." And when he called Lazarus forth, death released what it thought it had claimed. That's how God works. When life turns against you, it's not to destroy you. It's to display his glory in you. The devil may have designed it for destruction, but God has already re-engineered it for destiny. Every closed door, every betrayal, every delay is part of your divine story. Romans 8:18 reminds us, "The sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that will be revealed in us." The nights of weeping are not wasted. The morning of joy is on the horizon. Psalm 30 verse 5 declares, "Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning." That morning is not just a time on the clock. It's a shift in your season, a divine turnaround moment where God flips sorrow to laughter, fear to faith, pain to purpose, and defeat to victory. You might be asking, but when will it happen? Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, "He makes everything beautiful in its time." God's timing is never late. Even when he seems silent, he is aligning events, people, and circumstances for your good. He is tying the loose ends, preparing hearts, and positioning resources behind the scenes. Don't give up before your miracle manifests. Remember, Joseph's pain lasted for years, but when his change came, it was sudden and divine. Psalm 105, 19-21 says, "Until the time that his word came to pass, the word of the Lord tested him. The king sent and released him. The ruler of the people let him go free." That means while Joseph waited, God's promise was maturing. The delay didn't destroy him, it developed him. And when the time came, one royal command shifted his story from prisoner to prime minister. That same God can shift your story today. You might still be in the pit season, but the palace is not far. You might still be waiting, but heaven has already scheduled your release. God's plan cannot be canceled by any event in your life. So rise this morning with faith in your heart. Lift your eyes beyond your circumstances. Begin to thank God not just for what is working, but for what seems not to be working. Because even those things are working for your good. Declare like Joseph, "The enemy meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." Declare like Paul, "I will rejoice always." Declare like David, "I will lift up my eyes to the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help comes from the Lord." Today, let this message sink deep into your spirit. God always has the final move. Life may have thrown you into a pit, but it is not your grave. You are only passing through. The same stone rolled to trap Joseph was the stone God rolled away to make his story a testimony. Hold on, trust him, and keep praising even in the waiting. Because before long, you'll look back and say, just like Joseph, "What they meant for evil, God turned it for my good."